Today, dozens of incredibly brave Afghan girls are back in school after a horrific bombing killed at least 60 people this weekend, many of them teenage girls attending school. The Taliban has not claimed responsibility for the attack, but the deadly incident mirrors a rise in attacks against Afghans since President Biden announced the U.S. troop withdrawal. NBC chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel has been in Kabul as this community deals with the tragedy and the grief.
The mourners held tarps to shade the bodies as they prayed for the fallen, many of them under 15. When I asked a group of mourners what they think will happen now as American troops leave, they all predict civil war and an emboldened Taliban. 21-year-old Shah Zaman is a medical student.
The Americans should not live here. They're good for Afghanistan. The government cannot control the situation.
And joining me now, Richard Engel in Kabul and Gail Limon, New York Times bestselling author and adjunct senior fellow for women and foreign policy at the Council of Foreign Relations. And her new book is The Daughters of Kobani. Richard, first to you. There are fears this could be the first in a series of attacks. There have already been attacks over the last weeks, months even. And as you spoke with those young students today, they're determined to keep going to school despite everything.
They are, and across Kabul, except for that one school that was bombed, children were back in classes today. But there is a lingering fear here that is coming more and more to the surface, that this country is on the brink of some kind of civil war. American troops are leaving, NATO troops are leaving. That will mean that it is up to the Afghan security forces. On their own, they will still get some logistical support, but they will be getting it from afar to fight off the Taliban. And the Taliban is not the same militant group that ruled this country 20 years ago. They are much better. They've gotten better at their tactics, having fought the American forces and NATO forces for so long. And they are closing in. They already control about half of this country as of right now. They don't control any of the big towns and cities, but in the town, in the villages and in the countryside where they do have taken control, they are already closing girls' schools and reimposing their will. So the Trump administration made a deal with the Taliban that U.S. troops would leave, and in exchange the Taliban would not engage in international terrorism and would more or less change its ways. But it seems very much like as American troops leave, the same old Taliban is coming back with its same old ways. And I think here in Kabul, they are worried that they are soon going to be arriving on the doorsteps of this city. And there have already been, as you say, this attack and others may have been by Taliban, may have been by ISIS, but certainly the result is the same. Women, girls were targeted.
Yeah, and the Taliban deal was not to attack, not to do international terror, not to attack U.S. troops, but the pace, according to CENTCOM, the pace of attacks against Afghans is actually increasing. So, Gail Limon, you've spent so many years there, you live there, you've written about it in your books. What is the hope for women and girls going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I would never lose hope because they don't. And I spoke last night and this morning to several folks who were part of conversations that women are having, calling for the government to do more to protect women, to protect girls. There's a lot of mobilization going on among Afghan women to figure out what comes next. The question is, what can the U.S. do? There are two things that I think are really important. One is diplomacy. When I spent a lot of time at Afghanistan Center at Kabul University, an amazing research institution, you go back to the original documents when the Taliban took Kabul in 1996, and the thing they wanted was the United Nations seat. The international community has leverage. It has diplomatic leverage, and I think there has to be a dialogue about what comes next. The second thing is that you really do see Afghan women and girls calling for Afghan security forces to be supported. And that is what when I talk to a lot of activists, is it's really important that the world doesn't forget us, that the world doesn't leave diplomatically, and that our security services continue to have support. Because the truth is, how do you extinguish the brightest lights of the nation? You go after girls who will do anything to be in school. I spent a lot of time in that neighborhood, and I was so emotional last evening just thinking about how determined those girls are no matter what comes, and how determined their fathers and mothers were to have them have a good education so they could contribute to a brighter future for their country.
And we have a little bit more, Gail, of some of Richard's interviews. I wanted to play some of it. The determination, the resilience is remarkable.
That attack must have been frightening because they were trying to target girls just like you. But you're not stopping. You're still here in school.
Yes, we are strong. We are strong girls, and we will continue like that.
Richard, speak to that because you were there. You're seeing it up close.
Well, there's two issues at stake. There is the younger generation of Afghans who have grown up under American and international protection for the last 20 years. It hasn't been great in this country. There's been violence, there's been corruption, but they have had opportunities like they never saw. They're in that one classroom where I was today. That girl who was speaking there, you just heard from, she said she either wants to be a businesswoman or a doctor. Next, she's 12. A girl next to her said she wants to be an astronaut. Another girl says she wants to be a doctor. 20 years ago, when the Taliban was here, the girls weren't allowed to have ambitions like that. And now there is a concern that this country could slide backwards. And those girls themselves told me they're afraid that this country is going to slide backwards. And they don't want to lose the rights. They don't want to lose their dreams. So there is this generation here that was given hope that is now dreaming of a different future. And then, of course, there is the legacy of America's longest war ending and leaving this behind.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.